Booster flares! Now, now, now! Splitting the throttles!
Very lucky that Rooster knew where the countermeasures switch was in an aircraft that he'd never flown in before. Hello, my name is Paul Tremelling. I'm an ex-fighter pilot from the Royal Navy. In my time in the Royal Navy, I flew Sea Harrier, Harrier and Super Hornet, the aircraft that appears in the recent film Top Gun: Maverick. I'm here to break down scenes from that film.
You've got to be shitting me. An F-14?
Once I'm up, stow the ladder.
So there was an export customer for the F-14, I believe it was Iran. So it is plausible that there is an old F-14 knocking around in a hangar somewhere. Whether or not it works is a bit more dubious. Any aircraft just left around for any length of time is probably completely unserviceable. So the notion that it would be fully fueled in a hangar ready to go, we all know that's a little bit far-fetched, but the reference to the first film is great.
Mav, this is a taxiway, not a runway. This is a very short taxiway, Mav.
We just hang on.
So the wings are coming out to orientate them to the airflow for slow speed flight. The taxiway, I think Rooster needs to relax about this. Loads of aircraft take off from roads and taxiway. It's the length that he is bunched about, and rightly so.
Mav, tally 2, 5 o'clock low.
Just be cool. If they knew who we were, we'd be dead already.
Well, here they come. What's your plan?
So they've been bounced by a combat air patrol of the threat nation who know something are up, but they've got F-14s in their own orbit. So realistically, they're just closing for a positive identification of what that aircraft is and what it's doing there. You'll see it's a lot more advanced than the F-14. It is a low observable aircraft itself. That's no biggie really. What will manifest itself is the fact that as a advanced aircraft, it's probably got a huge amount of power and is very, very maneuverable compared to the F-14.
What's that signal? What's he saying?
Yeah, no idea. I have no idea what he's saying.
What about that one? Any idea?
So I'm guessing it was the threat pilot saying, contact me on 335.0. That was a radio frequency I think he might have been passing, but I don't know. We do actually communicate by hand signals a great deal in fast jets, particularly where there's no need for communications, usually for things like formation changes, etc. You can even see someone's hands at night through goggles in an aircraft.
Here comes another one! Booster flares! Now, now, now! Splitting the throttles!
Very lucky that Rooster knew where the countermeasures switch was in an aircraft that he'd never flown in before. The reason that you'd carry countermeasures is to seduce off infrared shots, so what are sometimes called heat seekers, and they just basically give the inbound missile something better to look at.
Hang on! We gotta get low! The terrain will confuse.
So not necessarily that maneuver, but the 5th generation jets are very, very maneuverable indeed. I've been lucky enough to fight against the F-22 on a couple of occasions, and their nose pointing authority is incredible. And there were times when they would simply appear to turn round in midair to be able to point at you. That was a pretty spectacular maneuver. What Mav's saying now is actually perfectly common sense, is that if he can get down low quickly enough, he might be camouflaged against the background. The enemy's weapons might not work quite so well against the background, so he's going to go low.
His targeting system. Here he comes!
And I think that you saw what looked like the symbology for his infrared weapons jumping around on the hot rocks, and that's perfectly plausible. So a couple of things there. Obviously, Maverick managed to take his aircraft out of plane and position behind the threat fighter, which was cool. For some reason, the threat fighter forgot that he was ultra maneuverable and didn't pull the same maneuver again. And we end up in the final scene with 2 single-seaters ejecting and the twin-seat aircraft winning, which is a direct reverse of what we saw earlier.
Daggers, assume attack formation.
This looks absolutely magnificent. Having those jets all tooled up that close looks great. It's nothing like a tactical formation. If the enemy came across that now, they'd think they were under some sort of strange experimental flight. Ordinarily, they'd be at least a mile apart with maybe in a box type formation, a mile across, a mile back, maybe even more. Maybe have the trail element, so have 2 up the front and 2 at the back with about a minute spacing, maybe. You have to bear in mind that they're going on a bombing mission, and the bombs from the second pair are on the same target as the front pair. That means that there's a big explosion has to happen, a load of dust and derision has to go airborne, and then clear for the second pair to do their business. So being in this formation is a little bit fanciful.
Rooster, where are you?
Come on, Rooster! Bandits inbound! We gotta make up time now!
So a couple of things. Rooster's obviously dropping back and off the timeline. Why does that matter? Well, because your plan is done very, very tightly. I'm not sure about these guys, but we used to use plus or minus 3 seconds. So the fact that he's dropping back is a significant problem.
30 seconds to target. Bob, check your laser. Air-to-ground check complete. Laser code verified. 1688. Laser is a go.
Payback, you with me?
Right behind you.
Very realistic in that you would always obviously check all your systems, but you would check them before you went anywhere near the enemy coast. So the fact is you would make sure that your radar, that your targeting pod was all working, and if they weren't at that point, you would scramble the airborne spare or a spare. I know they've got a guy waiting in a jet on the deck just in case. So if someone did have an unserviceability, then he would fill forward and they would simply drop out.
Stand by! I've got it! Captured! Target acquired. Bombs away.
So they're pulling up in their escape maneuver. What they're actually trying to avoid at the moment is the hill that's in front of them. There's various other reasons why they would have to pull up aggressively. For example, weapons can prematurely detonate, particularly when they fuse or indeed when they hit the target. So they do actually have to get away from the fragmentation of the weapons going off. It is a perfectly reasonable tactic for someone else to laze in your weapon. So one aircraft acting as the bomb truck, the other one to have the laser. The way they've got it at the moment, though, the guy behind would have to laze until impact, which would put the twin-seat aircraft in this particular example pretty damn close to the weapons as they cooked off.
Rooster, there's something wrong with this laser! Shit! Deadeye! Come on, guys, we're running out of time. Nearly there!
There's no time. I'm dropping blinds.
Rooster, I got this!
Right, so in this case, you've got no capability of the aircraft to actually put a laser spot down that the bombs would home in on. They fall and basically home in on the reflected energy. So they've done what we call just sledding the bombs in. Now, theoretically, the aircraft will have a model for how the bomb's going to react, and it will go to the target, but the laser would have been far more accurate.
Star, you are cleared above 600. Increase to Mach 3.5.
Cleared above 600. Increase to Mach 3.5.
This is the Mach 10 scene, so 10 times the speed of sound, which at the height that they're going to do it at is probably around 6,000 miles an hour. So I've watched this clip before. He's increasing to Mach 3.5, and I think we'll see in just a second that he's actually heading north and east out of California, which means all this supersonic and hypersonic activity is going to be done over land. The residents might have something to say about, but other than that, wasn't it great to see him take off?
Transitioning to scramjet.
So just to recap, a ramjet, which you might have seen on some aircraft or systems, essentially has no moving parts, but it slows the supersonic air to subsonic, mixes it with fuel, and then passes it out the back. With a scramjet, it's all supersonic. I think when you look at him using his left hand to go between obviously high-speed flight and scramjets, no idea whether that would work or not. You'll have to ask a test pilot.
Mav, Admiral Kane is asking...
Ordering
that we bring her down.
And there you see on the top right the fact that he's over the six. I think he's probably, is that Utah that he's over at the moment? So probably putting down some significant sonic booms, I guess.
Temperature's climbing. Response is still stable. We're feeling good.
The thing I really love about this scene is the fact that you've got all that high-performance aircraft and all the monitoring, and it's very scientific on the ground, but it's actually almost quite spiritual in the air, and that does happen when you see like a beautiful dawn, or I remember the first time I saw the Northern Lights from an aircraft at night looking north in the North Sea, and you can't help but be transfixed, and it ceases to be about physics and a machine, it becomes something slightly more than that, and I think this scene absolutely captures that beautifully.
Windshield hat caution.
Surface temp rising.
As you push an aircraft through the air, it is by friction going to get quite warm. It's how infrared-seeking weapons work. They don't necessarily lock onto the exhaust plumes. They also lock onto the surface heating along the surfaces of the aircraft. The fact that he's approaching Mach 10 and is getting warm is genuinely no surprise.
Come on! Come on!
Put that in your Pentagon budget.
Obviously elation amongst the trials team, which is great, and you'd expect that in any trial, and proof that if you shout enough at a machine, then it does as it's told.
Oh, shit.
Maverick! Maverick!
So the aircrafts come apart at Mach 10, which is approximately 6,000 miles an hour at that height. It would appear from the rest of the film that it turned out to be survivable, which is amazing. There were, I believe there were a couple of U-2 or maybe SR-71 very high-level ejections, but quite an incredible feat to survive this. The air is very, very thin up there. Even with normal ejection seats, for example, they might keep you in the seat until about 10,000 feet, feeding you off auxiliary oxygen just to make sure you get down into the thicker air that you can actually breathe. And he's got a while before he gets down into that. I think the main misconceptions about fighting in fighter aircraft are probably there's no way in film of really getting across what the forces on the body are or how many things people are thinking about. The thing that always comes across incorrectly, I think, are people's characters. The egos need a bit of pricking, in my opinion, and people talk far too much. Thank you for watching. You can get my book, Harrier, How to Be a Fighter Pilot, in hardback, ebook and audio by clicking on the link in the description below. Please don't forget to subscribe to Penguin to see more videos like this.